Stormalina was a little girl who lived with her family way up north on the Tiwi Islands. She loved to fish and play with her mamanta, that's Tiwi for friends. Every day was different for Stormalina, and every day she learnt something new. On Monday, Stormalina's auntie called to her, "Kali, Kali, sit your longa down. Story Big Mob, I got it for you." Stormalina went and sat with the Woolamaka, wise old woman. She loved listening to the Naramani her auntie told. They were always enthralling, but more importantly, they taught her about her people and the land, how they came to live on the Tiwi Islands, the best places to catch mud crab, and the sacred spaces. How things were, had always been, and will be forevermore. She wondered excitedly what story she was going to hear today. "I'm going to tell you a story from long ago," her auntie began. When time began, the earth was dark and cold. The mountains had not formed, neither the valleys nor the rivers. "This is the story of Madankala, auntie?" interrupted Stormalina. Her auntie nodded her head slightly, a sign of approval. Beneath the earth wandered small groups of people. Among them was an old woman, great in size, named Madankala. On her back she carried her babies, 2 girls and a boy. One day she dug her way to the earth above. As she kneeled to rest, the children began to wail from hunger. Madankala had no milk. She looked about for food and a place to lay her children, but there was nothing, no grass on which to lie, no waterhole from which to drink, no forest in which to hunt game. She began to crawl north, her heavy body gouging a deep ditch in the earth, into which the sea rushed. She turned east, then south, and after a long time, Madankala reached the place where she had started. The sea closed in behind her and formed Melville Island. Stormalina's auntie continued the story of Madankala, teaching her how she created grass for her children to lie on, and trees and bushes and rocks for animals to live in so they could have food. She created fish to swim in the sea and birds to fly above the earth. She made the heron and the magpie goose, the crocodile and the flying squirrel. She created light so the children could know one another and see the land on which they lived. Once she had done this, she disappeared, never to be seen again, finished the auntie. After the story was done, Stormalina sat and yarned with the auntie around the campfire for a while longer. They talked about Madankala and how she cared for her children, and other things, like Stormalina's love of mango and the upcoming Kulama ceremony. On Tuesday, Stormalina learnt to make tanga, bark baskets, with her mum and sisters. Her mum showed her how to find and collect the best type of bark to use and how to turn this into a basket. Then she let Stormalina have a go by herself. It was hard, but with a bit of a help from her mum, she started to get it. Her mum would give her a gentle nod or shake of her head to let Stormalina know if she was doing it correctly. Next, her older sister showed her how to use the pandanus leaves to make ceremonial headbands. First, she showed her the way to gather the leaves and how to arrange them. After Stormalina had watched a couple of times, her sister encouraged her to make one of her own. "These will be great for the Kulama ceremony, sis?" Stormalina said. Later that day, her cousin sister showed her how to skin a wallaby and use its skin and fur to make clothing and shelter. Again, first she showed Stormalina what to do, then she let her have a go herself. On Wednesday, Stormalina's father's brother took her and her cousin hunting. Stormalina liked going hunting. She loved learning how to track and hunt different animals, when different fruits would be in season, the safest waterholes to drink from, and how to use different plants for food and medicines. Before they left, they sat next to the creek and had a yarn. They were going to her father's brother's country, out at Goose Creek, to catch some magpie geese. Her father's brother drew in the sand to help explain the best places and techniques to catch the tasty bird. He drew symbols to represent the birds, themselves, and different parts of the land they would need to remember when hunting. He made sure to tell them where to stay away from, in case of Idigabay, that's crocodile, and where to find Big Mob bush plum. Once they had figured it all out, Stormalina was up and ready to go. "Wait," said her father's brother. "Sit and listen to the creek for a bit." Her father's brother explained that we can learn from what is inside of us and the land, but we have to open ourselves up and be ready to listen. Stormalina sat back down and imagined she was floating downstream as the water trickled through the rocks. Eventually, they were on their way to Goose Creek. Stormalina and her cousin caught 2 magpie geese each. They would be great tucker for the ceremony in a couple of days' time. They were able to remember where to go and where to avoid, thanks to the diagram her father's brother had drawn in the sand. On Thursday, Stormalina was excited to have her first ever Kalama lesson with other girls around her age. For the next 6 or so dry seasons, she would be instructed by the female elders in the musical composition and performance used in rituals and ceremonies, as well as Tiwi kinship systems, social responsibility, and languages. While Stormalina was being prepared for her first ever Kalama ceremony, her brothers and male cousins, all at different stages of knowledge, went bush to prepare and learn as well. Each boy had a male mentor who was entrusted with the job of teaching him the skills and knowledge needed to compose and perform their own songs at Kalama. They also learned all the other things grown men should know, like language, sacred places and stories, rituals, kinship, and social responsibilities. Stormalina's oldest brother was at the last stage of Kalama and would soon be a man and allowed to marry. On Friday, the Kalama ceremony began. Because it was the start of the dry season, it was the first May Kalama ceremony of the year. It lasted for 3 full days and 3 nights. Stormalina watched and learnt how to paint Jilamara, designs on the body. She helped to wash, cook, and eat the normally poisonous yam in a special way so it was safe. She watched as initiated adults composed and performed songs and dances about current events, problems, personal achievements, ancestral lines and kinships, and shared new ideas. From all these, she learnt social responsibilities, kinship, and respect. There was no need for a printed register of births, deaths, and marriages, an honour roll, dictionary, or sacred book. All this knowledge and more was put into song. Then it was time for her eldest brother's first ever Kalama song. He sang of how proud he was of his youngest sister, for all she had learned and was continuing to learn. Stormalina could hardly wait for her chance to sing at Kalama, even though it was 6 dry seasons away. As Stormalina grew older, she learnt more and more until she was an old Wulamaka herself. It was then her turn to pass on the knowledge she had learnt over her lifetime to the young mob, for that's the way it had always been and always would be.